and welcome to Makeup and Monarchies. If you are new here, my name is Tiffany. I am a hairstylist, makeup artist, cosmetologist, and lover of all things UK medieval history. So if you have been tuning in, we were doing the Henry VIII series, but now we are moving north into Scotland, and we this week are going to cover Alexander III. The reason being is I'm going into the Scottish War of the Roses. Oh my God, War of the Roses. The first war of Scottish independence, and this is a good segue into that. I will put a disclaimer on this episode because we have a lot of Alexanders and we have a lot of Margarets. I'm just warning you, my brain was a little fried, so I'm gonna try and give their title every time. If I don't, I apologize. If you like this kind of stuff and you want to see what else I post, please hit the subscribe button and make sure that the bell has been rung so that you get notified when I post something. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below because that helps put me in the algorithm. Also, I will be listing all the products that I use in the description box. I think that's it for housekeeping stuff. Oh no, I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, and you can find me at Makeup and Monarchies over there. On those, I will post stuff like makeup I did that day or on this day. So if there's something significant in history that went on that day in what I cover, I will post that daily. I try to, if there's something. It's been kind of like, wait, you're seeing this 2 weeks after I actually filmed this. So 2 weeks ago, it was kind of on the slow side. So anywho, you could also support me or help me and support me if you would like to buy me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/makeup and monarchies. I would greatly appreciate it because this is a lot of work, but don't think I don't enjoy it. I love every minute of it. I think with that being said, we could get right into this episode. So let's get into it. Hello. I feel like we're in a fresh start. We're out of Tudor, England. Happy, because I've been living there in my little brain for quite some time. So we're gonna go back in time and go up to Scotland, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this. So this week we are going to talk, I'm sure I said it already, talk about Alexander III. Who is that? So Alexander III is the person who really not that he had anything to do with it, but through things that happened to Alex, shit happened. So who was he? Alexander III was born on September 4th of 1241 to Alexander II of Scotland. His second wife, Marie, and Marie de Cousy. I'm not even gonna say the other way. It's Coucy. I don't know if it's a hard C or a soft C, so pause. So Prince Alexander was his father's only, I did tan this morning again after I got out of the shower, and it always shows up all the shit on my face. Much. Prince Alexander was his father's only son. The king's first wife, Joan of England, was sister to Henry III of England and daughter to King John. Why is that important? We're gonna find out in a little bit. So very little is known about his education and his upbringing. So King Alexander II died while campaigning on July 6th of, I told you I'm stuck in Tudor era, in 1249 while he was campaigning on the Isle of Kira in the Inner Hebrides. So if you don't know where that is on the eastern side of Scotland, kind of I'll just put in here's a map. Here's the Inner Hebrides. So this left the almost 7-year-old, almost 8-year-old prince as king. His coronation took place at Moot Hill in Scone on July 13th of 1249. So it was literally a week after his father died. He was crowned. He was greeted by a royal poet that addressed him with the proclamation. I'm going to say the translation, and I'm going to put up what it was in Scots Gaelic. This translates to, God bless the King of Scotland. He also recited Alexander's genealogy. His reign didn't begin easy. He had to deal with struggles between two rival parties. One was led by Walter Cummin, the Earl of Monteith, and the other was Alan Durward, which he was justiciar of Scotia. Cummin had dominated the early years of Alexander's reign. When Alex was 10, he was married to the daughter of Henry III of England, who's Margaret, who was 11 at the time. They were married at York Minster on December 25th of 1251, and they stayed in York until January of 1252. I don't know what I'm doing for makeup today, but we're going to do it and see what happens. Henry took this opportunity and demanded homage from Alexander III for the Scottish kingdoms, but Alex didn't obey. So married life for the little royal couple that was so fucking loud, was rough in the beginning. Remember, they're 10 and 11 when they wed. So Margaret wasn't happy living in Edinburgh and would write home saying she was being treated badly. This obviously created tensions between England and Scotland and through Alex and Henry. The royal couple were not allowed to have relations, so they were kept apart and they wouldn't see each other very often. I can't even imagine a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old being married. I can't even tie their shoelaces. So Margaret wasn't happy about this because she had been given a good impression of Alex and she liked him. Also, what are we doing today? I want to do what do I want to do? Let's use this. I always do brown. Let's do cooler color today. Also, she didn't like Edinburgh or the castle, and she also didn't like the Scottish weather and missed England as well as her family, which I don't blame her. She's still little. I know it was different, I guess. I don't really think it was that. They're little kids. A little kid's a little kid. So when she wrote home, she said she was homesick and complained to her parents. In turn, they asked for her to visit them, and the Scottish people refused, and because they were afraid she wasn't going to return, or that she wouldn't come back. In 1250, the Pope So in 1250, Henry III wrote to the Pope asking that Alex's coronation not be accepted because he viewed the King of Scotland, Henry viewed the King of Scotland as his liegeman, as he was lord of certain estates in England, meaning because Scotland and the monarch owned certain estates or some estates in England, then it was on, I'm trying to word this well, bear with me. Because they owned certain estates in England, then the monarch of England was in charge of the monarch in Scotland because there were estates in England. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to word it well. So basically he would, because of those estates, then the Scottish monarch would be a subject of the English monarch. I hope that made sense. Alex refused to bow to Henry's demands, which good for you. Alex said that he would only swear fealty for the English lands he held and not Scotland itself, which he said was given to him by rule of God, meaning he was the monarch of Scotland because God gave it to him. This event would play a role in the war between England and Scotland the following century, or actually later that century, but it would bleed into the next century. We'll get there. Not today, but we're going to get there. So during an interview between Alex and Henry in 1255, I'm going to try and, okay, I can't talk because I guess we're doing grunge today. Sometimes I don't go into this with a plan, but we're doing grunge. I don't think I'm going to do a liner, or I might do a little one. We'll see. Maybe it'll be another time where I don't think we're going to do it, and then we end up doing it. So during the interview, Monteith and his party lost to Durward's, and even though he was disgraced, the party still maintained huge influence. 2 years later, they forced their rivals to agree to the erection of a regency representative to both parties. That sounds a little like, I'm just gonna go in a little bit with, actually I might like wedge this out a little bit. So, okay. Might not need to do a liner today. I have carbon right now and I'm just gently like filling in, and then don't do this. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm just gonna pull. I just need this lid steady, and sometimes it's not, but I'm just gonna kind of blend that. Yeah. There's very little on here. I don't do that often, but okay. This got dark real quick, but it's fine. It's fine. I want to grunge, I think. I don't know. We're just going with the flow. Also, in 1255, the royal couple, who are now 14, are permitted to consummate their marriage as long as the Regency Council agreed to turn over power to Alex in 7 years. At that point, he would be 21, which typically was the age of maturity and to reign. Also, Alex would then be obligated to be physical with Margaret and allow her the freedom to visit her family in England. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Lord Jesus. Are we doing? Oh, no, I wanted to do this. Wait a minute. I'm going to go. This sometimes comes in handy. I'm going to take this Cosmic from MAC. Sometimes these little little tiny palettes from MAC are fun. So I like that. It's like a darker beigey frost color, but opening that up a little bit. I'm going to cover this. I like this because it's transparent, so that black is going to peep through. On September 7th, shortly after Alex's 15th birthday, Alex and Margaret traveled south to visit her family in England. Alex left before Margaret... I cannot be almost done this. There's no way. It's like I am. Alex, like I said, Alex left before Margaret because she wanted a little bit more family time, but she ended up following him shortly after he left and after the agreement was secured. Remember what I said a few minutes ago about how the rivals were forced to agree on the Regency, like on the Regency representatives? This was because Alex and Margaret were captured and held captive by the Cummin family. They were released after King Henry intervened, as well as the Scottish Regency Council. In 1260, Margaret became pregnant, and the couple's first child was born. It's really hard to do your makeup in a camera. In 1260, Margaret became oh my God. In 1260, Margaret became pregnant with the couple's first child and went home to give birth to the baby along with Alex. The royal couple welcomed the Princess Margaret on February 28th of 1261 at Windsor Castle. That threw me for a loop because I was just reading all the information. When I saw like her birthplace, I was like, what the fuck? But I had to dig. So Alex, Margaret, and the baby princess were accompanied home by 5 earls, 4 bishops, and 4 barons. I'm sure because of what had happened previously. Everybody was a little on edge about them traveling, which rightfully so. In 1262, King Alexander, who is now 21, declared his intention of resuming the projects on the Western Isles. This is what his father was doing when he died. He put forward a formal request or formal claim to King Haakon IV, or Haakon of Norway. We're gonna try and figure that one out. This was rejected, and the King of Norway responded with an invasion the following year. The Norwegians sailed around the west coast of Scotland and stopped off the Isle of Arran, where negotiations began. Alex held off negotiations until the autumnal storms started, but the King of Norway attacked anyways, but a huge storm damaged his ships. He ended up heading home and died in Orkney on December 14th of 1263. The Isles were now Alexander's, and in 1266, the new Norwegian king concluded the Treaty of Perth and gave over the Isle of Man and the Western Isle to Scotland for payment. However, Orkney and Shetland, which if you're local to there, it's pronounced Shetland. I almost said that. However, Orkney and Shetland remained property of Norway until 1469. Alex and Margaret welcomed their second child on January 21st of 1264 in Jedburgh. They welcomed Prince Alexander into the world and gave the king an heir. And then they welcomed another boy, David, on March 20th of 1272 at Stirling Castle. Alexander and Margaret traveled south to England again in August of 1274 for the coronation of Margaret's brother, Edward I. Alexander and Edward had a good relationship, which confuses me for further events. Anyways, the coronation was held on the 19th of August in Westminster Abbey. 6 months later, Margaret was at Cunpar Castle and died. I'm sure this was a shock to Alex and the kids, as the youngest, David, was only almost 3. Margaret was buried at Dunfermline Abbey in Fife. Unfortunately, tragedy was far from over for the family. In 1281, David, who was 8, passed away. Based on the letters that Prince Alexander and Princess Margaret wrote, they remained close with their uncle Edward I. King Alex focused on arranging a good marriage for his son Alexander. Negotiations started with the Count of Flanders about his daughter, also named Margaret, marrying the prince. In 1281, Princess Margaret, who was now 20, was betrothed to Eric II of King of Norway, who was 13 at the time. Margaret was completely against this, but King Alex insisted. I honestly think he was probably trying to win back Orkney and Shetland, but Eric was given several estates in Scotland as part of Margaret's dowry. This union would secure Margaret and her children would succeed the Scottish throne if King Alex passed away with no legitimate son and if his legitimate sons left no legitimate children. So she was basically the oldest but bottom of the totem pole for this. So Prince Alex married Margaret of Flanders on November 14th of 1282 at Roxburgh Castle. Margaret became pregnant. Princess Margaret / Queen Margaret of Norway. Like I said, there's a lot of Margarets in this and I deeply apologize. I probably should have just gone through this with their titles, but sorry. Became pregnant. So Princess Queen Margaret of Norway became pregnant in 1282. She went into labor in March, or between March and early April of 1283 and gave birth to a baby girl. The new princess's name, Princess of Norway's name, was, you guessed it, Margaret. Her mother, Queen Margaret, died shortly after Margaret was born. Baby Margaret was born. So Queen Margaret, daughter of Alexander III, was buried at Christ Church in Bergen, Norway. Alexander's surviving child, Prince Alexander, suffered from illness for a while. He turned 20 on January 21st, and 7 days later, he too died. The prince was buried at Dunfermline Abbey, where his mother was buried. This now left the king's granddaughter, Margaret. Her nickname was is Maid of Norway. I don't know if they called her that back then. That was probably a more modern nickname for her. So this left Margaret of Norway as heir because the prince's wife, Prince Alexander, had not yet conceived a child. So in 1285, after 10 years after his wife's death, King Alex married again. His second wife was Yolande de Dreux. She was the daughter of the Count of Dreux in France. She was 22 when they married, and the king was looking for another heir to the throne. The new marriage was celebrated on October 15th of 1285 at Jedburgh Abbey and was attended by many of the nobles from France and Scotland. I'm gonna put these on. So supposedly, or legend has it, that on March 19th, the king was in Edinburgh doing king things and having meetings, but his new wife's birthday was the next day, and he wanted to ride through the night and get to her in Fife to celebrate the day with her. So he let people know that he was leaving and that he was gonna go through the night to go ride through the night to Fife to see his wife. Sorry for my Dr. Seuss moment. So he was highly advised highly against this ride because there was a storm brewing, but the king insisted and left. I know this looks crazy, but there's a reason behind it. When he got to the 4th, I can't talk when I do this. When he got to the 4th, he was advised against riding on or advised again not to proceed with his journey because the weather. But Alex was being stubborn Scot said, no, I'm going. So he continued on. He did not make it to Fife. His body was found the next morning at the bottom of an embankment with a broken neck. I'm gonna go with this now. I don't think I'd like this, but I do. Ugh, what did I do? I love this color. The king was buried alongside his first wife, Margaret, and his son, Alex, at Dunfermline Abbey. Not long after this, Yolande moved to Stirling Castle and announced that she was pregnant. The Guardians of Scotland were elected by a parliament that was held at Scone. They swore to govern the kingdom until the declared heir, Margaret of Norway, came and took the throne, or Yolande gave birth to a baby who would be preferred over Margaret. It's not really I'm tight lining with this Charlotte Tilbury black liner. It's not really known what happened to Yolande's pregnancy, but it's assumed that she had a miscarriage or a stillborn, or the baby died shortly after it was born. One account says that the Guardians gathered at St. Catherine's, or on St. Catherine's Day, which was November 25th, to witness the birth of the baby, but the baby was stillborn. It's said the baby was buried at Cambus Kenneth. After this, preparations began to bring Margaret of Norway to Scotland to take the throne. Margaret, who's now 7 and 8 in that area, made her way to Scotland in 1290 by boat. I feel like this is gonna go everywhere if I don't. Oh, there we go. The little princess. I'm just gonna do this because it like pumps that up a little. There we go. The little princess / queen died on her journey to Scotland in the Orkney Islands. It was either from food poisoning or motion sickness from being on the boat. The little princess's body was returned to Bergen, where she was identified by her father, King Eric of Norway, and buried with her mother at Christchurch. So I've had this awful cough. I don't even know why or how for like a week now. It's annoying. So Scotland is now left with no monarch, and this is where things start to get a little, shit, that looks way better. Start to get very dramatic, sad, unreal. This is where shit takes off. So to be continued. But before we move on, we have fun facts. So this week, there was not very little information on this whole thing, but it was like not as much as I'm used to. So fun facts about them was a little difficult, but I got 3. So Christchurch, where the Princess Margaret, Maid of Norway, and her mother, Margaret, Queen of Norway, Alex's daughter and granddaughter, were buried. It has been destroyed since, so there's nothing remains of them. Second one, the death of Margaret of Norway was the end of House Dunkeld in Scotland. And lastly, Alex was a bit of a man whore in his widower days. I wasn't expecting that. So that concludes this week's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video and leave a comment below. Everything I used will be listed down below in the description. As far as, I think I'll remember them all. I used a lot of different new things, but we have a collab coming out. I'm so excited about it. That will be hitting soon. So like I said, to be continued, and that's going to bleed into the collab that I'm doing. As usual, follow me on all the social media things, Instagram, TikTok. If you enjoy this, if you love watching this, if you want me to continue this, I'm just kidding. If you just love this and would like to help support me in doing this, you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/makeup and monarchies, and you could buy me a coffee. So I would greatly appreciate that if you feel so inclined. If not, it's all good. Just make sure you hit the subscribe button and that you like and comment on my videos. I think that's it for this week, and I will see you in the next one. I hope you have a great day, a great week. I'll see you soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.